G'day, legends, and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me on tonight's Pot Noodle is John and Shane. How are you, Johnny?
I'm very good. I'm doing well. Just as I was saying to you guys off pod, I had a very nice little holiday in Melbourne recently. It was extremely wet and freezing. So, yeah, going from 31 to 12 was a bit of a shock to the system, but I survived it, obviously. I'm here. So, yeah, no, it was nice. I haven't been in Melbourne in, God, it must have been over 3 years now. So, it was nice to see the old stomping ground in Brunswick. So, yeah, enjoyed it.
Welcome to our world, Johnny.
Oh, God, yeah. What I needed was like proper scarf and gloves and a proper jumper and stuff, and not just a rain jacket. Because, yeah, that was a shock. Going from tropical to dreary and dreek. It was a bit of forgot how it was like.
It's the old 4 seasons in one day down here. You never know, so always have a jacket.
Yeah, yep. Needed it. Sure.
That's pretty much what it is. But anyway, everyone's not here to listen to us ramble about Melbourne weather. So we'll crack on because there's been a few little topics this week that have occurred. Oh, I wonder what they could be. There was only Glasgow Derby. There's some financials that have been released on a certain team sneakily last Friday. Kevin Clancy copping death threats, and a whole bunch of other things. Robbie Nielsen. So we'll get through all of them over the next hour or so, and have a bit of a chit chat. So Celtic 3, Sevco 2. Johnny, Joe, just get your overall thoughts on the game.
Heart in your mouth sort of stuff. Overall, I thought we were better. Obviously, I think we did push ahead. I had 3 neutrals sitting next to me on the couch, and they seemed to enjoy it a lot. So even for the unbiased and neutral, it was an entertaining game. You have to say that. I thought Sevco did well in big spells of the game. They controlled it well. They pressed well. The build up play was very good. We sort of came off it a little bit for a while, but overall we kind of matched them, and then eventually obviously went ahead. We'll go through individual players in a bit, I guess, but yeah, just overall I think it was probably a fair result, but we had to work for it. We definitely had to work for it, but enjoyable to watch for anyone.
Yeah, for me it was one of those games where I didn't really feel like it was one to worry about, if that makes sense. Like, we got the early goal, then they scored late on, then we score again, and then we get another one, so we got 3-2, they score. Yeah, okay, whatever. At that point, I wasn't even really worried that I didn't feel like they were threatening us and they were going to score. Like, all their goals, and as it was said on, what's it called, on the weekend review on Monday night, is that all their goals against us this season have come from set play situations. All of our goals have come from open play. So watching the game, I actually wasn't really worried at all in terms of, are we going to concede a goal here? Like, I was not worried. There's a few players we're going to touch on later on anyway. The main review has been done to death on Monday's pod. Last night's pod, they spoke about it as well. So we're just going to get the overall cliff notes on it. But for me, I thought 3-2, fair result. We got the points. Probably should have been 4-2 if Bernabé didn't square it to nobody. And other than that, job done. But Shane, what was your take on the game?
Similar kind of take. I thought it was a pretty scrappy kind of game, particularly that first half. And it continued a little bit for the second half as well, but punctuated by moments of quality and brilliance, really, in a couple of the goals and a couple of the plays from some individuals that we'll mention later as well. But look, I thought we weren't really at our best. I thought particularly first half, we're pretty slack with passing. I don't think the midfield really clicked. Second half, we looked a lot better, I thought, but still probably not at the level we're used to. But I always felt we had enough quality on the pitch to get the job done. And look, it should have been more comfortable than it was in the end, but it was still a fair result, and we were definitely the better team.
So there was a couple of little things we want to discuss here. So we'll start with the goals. So Kyogo's first goal, just basically barely had any service up until that point, to then just be like whack and get it done. Fair effort, good finishing there. Shane, anything you want to add on that goal there? Or
Just a quality finish from a quality striker.
I think the play to get the cross into him was, I think it was O'Reilly, if my memory was right.
Actually, yeah. So that's probably something worth. You've played me in beautifully, and I've let you down. Sorry. Yes. So O'Reilly, lovely touch to take the ball into the box and pass the defender, and then puts it across to Kyogo. I'm going to say it. It was Tom Rogic-esque. Just that first touch, and then the thing. There you go. See, it took a while. The coffee hasn't quite kicked in. It was Tom Rogic-esque, and it was a lovely finish from Kyogo, but it really was made by O'Reilly.
Yep. I was setting you up, Shane. It was there. All you had to do was just tap it into an empty net. Keeper was gone, out of position. Alan McGregor, out of position, gone. All you had to do was just tap it in.
And I wasn't in such a tight angle as Jota was, and I've still put it wide. You know what? I don't know what was worse. My initial answer to that, or Bernabé's pass to nobody.
Very similar.
Yeah, they're on the same level. But anyway, well, yeah. So we'll just crack on to like their equaliser, the goal from Tavernier. Credit where it's due.
Yeah, it was cracking, wasn't it?
Fair free kick. Like I think we are missing someone like that who can just step up from a corner and deliver the ball onto someone's head or get a free kick and pull it in. We don't have that player in the team. So that was a class finish, and I'll just give credit on that. But the foul before it, was it really a foul, Johnny?
If memory serves me right, I think it was soft, but look, it's their game. Whether it was a foul or not, I think it's their game. They're going to try and get fouls around there, right? That's, as you were saying before, that a lot of their tactics is set plays and stuff. They're not going to really get anything from open play. That I was shitting it when the foul was given, because I kind of felt like that was going to be a goal. It was a perfect sort of area. I think it was a little bit far out. What if I remember it was right? It was like 30, 35 yards. So it was still a bit of a screamer, right? But like it's what they're going to try and do. If it's not going to be a direct free kick, they're going to try and float it at the back post and get ahead or get a foot on it and stuff. And it's just all they're going to do. It's all they're going to do. It's going to be corners. It's going to be long free kicks. It's going to be direct free kicks, and it works for them, right? So it's like you were saying, Jared. It's something we really miss. We absolutely miss it. And maybe it's not such a focus for us, because what we're talking about is like a whole rounded game, but and ours isn't really about set plays and stuff. So whether it was or wasn't, I think I personally remember it being quite soft, but I wasn't shocked that was where they were going to try and get a foul in that sort of area at the time, at least.
I thought it wasn't necessarily the distance that made it awkward for Joe Hart. It was more the positioning, because it was slightly off center. So it was like, is it going to be the left footer or the right footer taking it? So the wall's got to be put to cover both, and then Hart's got to stay in the middle. And that's what made it hard for him to just hit it off the bottom of the crossbar and in. That's what I thought made it was awkward. Not really the distance or whatever, but yeah, you're right there, John. You're saying like we don't really.
Oh, you're on mute there, Jared.
You've just gone on mute.
Just as you're making your great point, it was all building up and it sounded brilliant, and then you put yourself on mute. I think he's just gonna fix his system. So yeah, do you want to say anything about the free kick, Shane?
Oh, it was just a really good finish. I think Jared touched on it. You have to give credit where credit's due. It was a great finish, and look, it was tough for Hart, but to actually get the ball up and over the wall and down in time, that's tough. And a deserved goal, like a deserved goal for that finish. I wouldn't necessarily say they deserve to go in on par with their performance, but cracking finish from Tavernier. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those annoying ones, isn't it, as well? Because it's someone that I personally absolutely hate, which is Tav. I think it's just that he scored such an absolute blinder like that. It's definitely all right. Jared's back, everyone. There you go. Panic over.
Oh, don't miss me too much. Bloody
Go on, Jared. You're making a good point there, mate.
I don't even know where it cut out, to be honest with you.
Just as you were about to say about Hart was set up in the middle. And
Yeah, so all we're saying is he was set up in the middle. We don't know if it's going to be right or left, and the ball comes in off the bottom of the crossbar. It's like,
yeah,
it wasn't too much Joe Hart could do about it. It was just an awkward position, and it was a good finish. So don't like Tavernier, but credit where it's due.
totally agree. It's a highlight reel. You know what I mean? Like and again for the neutral, people that sit next to me, that's you want to see that when you watch football. You want to see the exciting goals. So, yeah, I don't want to give him too much credit because Jesus Christ, like it's Tav. But
He compared himself to a bloody Mbappe.
Oh, Mbappe, that was silly. God, that's setting himself up.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll I think we can leave the goals there. But instead of banging on about that goal for ages, the last one we need to talk about is Jota. And the back pass from, when was it? Suda?
Suda, yep.
Socceroos have got the good Suda. Scotland's got the bad one by the looks of it. There you go. And that back pass, McGregor's done. You could see he wasn't going to get there. He needs a bit of oil in his joints or whatever. He's a little bit WD-40 or whatever. He's getting a bit old there and squeaky and everything, and couldn't get there. And
hello,
it was just great to see Jota come through, grab it and score it. And then someone on social media did that mock up of Larson's one, and then that, and it was exactly the same. It was just fantastic to see.
And it's a tight angle to score from there, by the way. Like, I know he's done a lot of work to get around. Well, I won't say a lot of work. He's casually strolled around McGregor to get the ball, but just to get that, that angle, there's still work to be done there, and he's done really well. So that was a very, very good goal, and that's all about Celtic's intensity. The whole never stopping and always pressing. That's how you get that type of goal.
Yeah, there's some great footage from behind the goals where you can just sort of see Jota and you can sort of sense what's going on or what might happen, and he's already ready to make that move. And it's a horribly hit back pass. If Suter plays that better, it probably doesn't happen. But you could just see it as McGregor's kind of coming out and Jota's zooming in. And the first thing that came to mind for me was actually from Lethal Weapon, a quote from Lethal Weapon where Danny Glover's like, "Oh, I'm getting too old for this shit." That's what I thought of when I saw McGregor looking at the ball as Jota's skipping in. "Oh, I'm getting too old for this." And but I agree wholeheartedly, Johnny. That's a tidy finish. That is a quality finish from Jota because he's got it all to do. He's running full pelt, and it's a tight angle, and he doesn't have a lot of wriggle room, and it's a cracking goal. It deserves just as much credit as the Tavernier free kick, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Shane, I have to ask you a question. Is that the first time you've ever sworn on this podcast? Because if it is, well done.
I think so. I've been trying to make it a good one, and this just fit perfectly.
Happy days then. Happy days. No.
I think it reminded me of the angle, at least slightly different goals, but it reminded me of the Cham's goal against Lazio away, where it's that there was good work beforehand, but there was still a lot to do to get the goal. Like it was still a very tight movement to go and get a goal. So yeah, it's the goal's up there. It definitely is, and we'll be comparing it to Larson for many years to come, I think.
Yep. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just focus on a couple of players on the game, and then we will crack on off the back of that into a few other topics. So, Shane, your boy Aaron Moy, what went wrong?
He just looked off it. I don't know if he was still underdone or what it was, but he just looked completely off it. His passing was poor, particularly through the entirety of the first half, really. He seemed to be really sluggish as well. He was getting caught with the ball a little bit. It just wasn't clicking. He wasn't alone, but he seemed to be the main culprit when I was watching it. Second half, he started a bit more, well, after the booking. Shout out to the Parramatta Eels. It sounds like Moy wants a career change maybe after that tackle on who was it? Who did he bring down?
Morelos.
Morelos, thank you. I thought it was. It's a good tackle. Anyway, he looked a little bit better, but he never really got going into that rhythm we usually see. And I think it was a right move to sub him off.
I'd have done it earlier, to be honest.
A lot of people were talking. A lot of people saying do it at halftime.
Yeah,
it was. I think it was just a plethora. I honestly think if we didn't have both McGregor and O'Reilly on cards, maybe, because I think, and it was a little, you could just sense that maybe things may boil over, and Kevin Clancy was handing out cards pretty willy-nilly. There was every chance something could happen and a second yellow would come up. So I think Ange was just trying to see how the pattern of the game went at the start of that second half. And then when he decided that kind of control was there, he felt, I guess he felt like he had more of a luxury to then bring Moy off at that stage as opposed to earlier, and then potentially O'Reilly or Calmac getting sent.
Yeah. I guess it wasn't bad enough to be like, you have to be pretty rotten to get shipped at halftime. And it was poor passing, all that stuff. We all know what it was like in the game, but it just wasn't quite bad enough to warrant a halftime sub. I think we wanted it because we were comparing it to what we knew Moy was like. So it's like, well, that's not the Moy that we normally get. Therefore, it's worse. Therefore, he needs to come off. So I think maybe Ange is, a bit more level-headed than we were, obviously. And then, he's always going to wait to the 60 minutes to do subs anyway. So, yeah, it happened to be kind of exactly, 62 minutes or something. So, yeah, I think it's probably just, it wasn't quite bad enough. But it was poor. It was very, very poor.
Look, the only reason I brought up Moy is because a lot of people were he was the one everyone in all the chats I'm in and out were talking about at halftime. And, okay, he wasn't with it in the first half, but there was so many other players who were dribbling the ball when they should have been passing. There was other guys there who were misplacing passes. It was just, I think maybe 2 or 3 players in the first half could come off at halftime going, I gave a fair shout here. And that would be probably Starfelt, Kyogo, and Johnson. That's pretty much it. Everyone else, every outfield player, all the others weren't up to scratch. So it's a little harsh that Moy was the one getting singled out, but at the same time, it was his first game back from an injury and everything. But at the same time, you don't have a Tade on the bench. You don't have, so you're missing him. You're one down there already. And then who's the other one that was missing? Abada's missing, which means, that's a whole different situation later on. We almost brought Rocco Vada on with 20 minutes to go in the game. Like, that says it all. Like, we didn't have the same level of depth we normally would have had. So I think if Tade was fit, then Moy coming back from injury would have been coming off the bench.
Yep. I totally agree. So maybe he was just maybe not the worst of a bad bunch, but he was because of his position and we know what he's like. It was one of those ones where he was under the spotlight quite a lot, and we kind of expected a higher caliber. Even if he just had a bit of an average game, it would have been better than he was playing then. He was giving a lot of balls away. It just was below par. But it's one game. You know what I mean? He's been phenomenal. So
it definitely seemed more pronounced than usual, and it seemed to when I was watching it, and I'm pretty bullish about Moy as most could imagine, and it seemed to really stand out for me. But to echo Jared's comments, he's totally right. There's not many that could have come off at halftime and said, I've had a good half. Like, we were under par across the pitch in a number of areas. And Moy, maybe he just was the one that was highlighted, maybe the most obvious, but there were plenty of others that could join him in those ranks. So, yeah.
It's a lack of leg speed, Shane. Let's be honest. If that was Matt O'Reilly doing the exact same thing, but then he's a bit more mobile and can go and press and win the ball back a lot more than Moy, people aren't going to come as hard as they did at Moy at halftime. Let's be honest. That's the way I look at it. But
yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
We've got some comments here to bring up. So Michael Ross, so we can forgive Moy. He's been tremendous.
Absolutely.
Mahesh, watch the first 15 minutes. Watch what Moy is doing off the ball. CCV should have found his runs and Celtic in front at halftime. And then Angelo, CCV was below his best. Carl carried him for a change.
Well, that ties in with Mahesh's comments, really, about
exactly.
CCV not finding Moy's runs. CCV was one of the ones who was pretty poor when coming off at halftime, to be honest.
It's an odd one, isn't it? None of these players were. They've all been on very good form beforehand. Maybe it was just the occasion. Do you know what I mean? And I think winning that game has all but confirmed winning the league. So it was maybe it was, they knew that as well. It was just the head got a little bit spun out because it doesn't make huge sense. They never outplayed us at all. We kind of were below our standard, I would say.
If that's us, apparently, if that's them playing at their best and we're playing at our lowest level and it's a 3-2 win and we're missing guys, it's scary to think what will happen when we get guys back in and we play at our pace.
Yeah.
A 3-2 could be a 5-2 or a 6-2. There's that magical score. So, it's a bit of an interesting one. So,
yep. We haven't really mentioned it, but Johnson was phenomenal. Jesus Christ. That Johnson was an absolute beast in the game. I thought that was one of his best performances so far. What about you guys?
I was going to name the pod Neck and Bottles like Johnson.
Yeah.
Be very Australian.
That was the other name for the episode tonight, but I thought that may go over a few heads. But yeah, what a guy!
Just
go up there, go we beat them, smash some whiskey or whatever, give a speech, smash some more, and take the bottle with him. What a bloke!
He was tremendous.
He really was. Yeah, he really was.
And particularly in that first half, when we were talking about obviously, more of what didn't work, he was phenomenal. I thought he was excellent, and he set the tone, and he was continually setting the tone throughout that first half. I thought second half maybe didn't have as much of an influence, but he probably didn't need to at that point. Look, a couple of moments he gave the ball away really cheaply a couple of times. Again, certainly wasn't alone in that. But I think when, to use a terrible phrase, when the whips were cracking, he really put in, and that I think outweighs any of the kind of the bad passing and stuff like that, to be honest.
Yeah. He was my man of the match. It's easy to say Kyogo was because he got all the goals and stuff, but I do think it was Johnson, personally.
Yeah, for me, Johnson, but another guy I want to mention, we haven't really touched on, but Johnson played a lot wider instead of inverting as much because he was covering Kent so closely. And Taylor was jumping in and inverting and basically playing a back three with that. So I think our two fullbacks were unbelievable overall in the course of the game. But Johnson, was the man of the match for me.
Yep. I agree. Go on, Shane. Sorry.
No, you go, Johnny.
I was going to say the tactics were very clever. The sort of, I think Sevco started doing it where they would overload a wing and then they would leave. They would, leave whoever. Which side did they overload in? I think they were doing Kent's side, so it'd have been Taylor that had been left on his own, obviously, like you were saying, Jared. So, yeah, and then we did the exact same. We went back and we had to match it and stuff, and obviously we did it better because at the end of the day we won. So, yeah, it was interesting from the tactics. We sort of matched them a lot, and then did press really high, and that kind of won it for us, I think.
I'd probably go a little bit left field with man of the match. I ended up singling out Jota. He ended up finishing with a goal and an assist. And something that I've been sort of wanting to sort of mention for a little while now is just his ability to continually will himself and impact the contest and impose himself in a match. It doesn't always have to be going his way for him to be involved. He worked ridiculously hard. He tracks back really well. But and you could look at this on the weekend, didn't have the best of first halves, wasn't awful by any stretch, but, probably wasn't having the type of game that he does. But then in that second half, he works himself, he wills himself into the contest, and he's become a very consistent player that can impact matches. It doesn't have to be all going his way. And so I loved his work in the second half, and I probably thought across both halves he was the best player. So I had Jota as man of the match.
As it was pointed out many times on the couch that I was watching the game from, he's turned into an Aussie trader with his bloody curly mullet and his big mo.
He's rocking the tradie look.
Every tradie here has the same look.
It's Jota, mate.
It's gotta, mate. I'll do it less for cash. Come on, make sure it's in cash.
Cash in hand.
Yeah.
We'll
Brilliant.
getting some VBs, and that's them sorted.
Shout out to all the wonderful tradies. Don't come after me, please.
Yeah, we actually love you.
No, it's just
We really do.
said in jest. Good eggs.
Yeah,
Hard-working people keep Australia running. There it is.
that's it.
All right, so we'll I've got a comment here from Angelo Tyro. I just want to touch on quickly. Ange could try his 4-2-2-2 again this week. Didn't we see it against Sevco a little bit?
Oh, did we? I didn't.
I'm pretty certain I saw it on the weekend when we had the two strikers up front, Owen Kyogo together, and then we had Haksabanovic and Jota out wide, and then we had Awada and Kelmack together side by side. There's your 4-2-2-2. I'm pretty certain we saw it on the weekend, and that's when we stemmed the flow and got back on top in our game again. So, yeah, it'll work for us, and that's something I think we'll see a bit in Europe next season as well. But yeah, it was good to see, and I hope we see a bit of it as well. But I don't think we're going to play around with that too much at Killy on a plastic pitch. But
No.
yeah,
Wouldn't have thought so, but it's a good throwback.
yep. All right, so now for some fun. Everyone, if you're watching this later on, not live, go to your kitchen, get a bowl of ice cream, get some jelly, and come back because it's time to discuss some Sevco financials that were released last Friday night when that UK time to try and push through. So, the easiest way to look at it is I'll bring up a couple of things here that were online. So, the easiest thing here is there's a Twitter account called Rangers Tax Case, and they have a fair idea. So, Sevco financial position from one of the 60,000 experts in the East End of Glasgow. Their position is now a little worse than the dead Rangers club they were built to emulate. With the Champions League group money, they still could not make a profit but had a small positive cash flow. Dead Rangers made small profits in Champions League seasons and huge losses when they were not. Looks like the slight deterioration when comparing the financial health of the new club to the old. The old Rangers club lost an average of 7.8 million per season under David Murray. The new Rangers, Sevco, are losing an average of 11.1 million. The old club has had the benefit of tax fraud to reduce costs. The new club wasted lots pretending it was a big club while in the lower tiers. Old Rangers had the clone, and the clone Rangers had several problems in common. Celtic's biggest stadium and the season tickets and matchday revenues which it brings. Celtic's commercial machine is firing on all cylinders and brings much more revenue. Sevco need to spend to stay at arm's length of a well-managed Celtic. Of course, you knew this already. Some of the media darlings, genuine expert from England must have told everyone. I'm completely mispronounced that. So that basically it says that they were designed to recreate Rangers. They've done very well. They've got the same financial issues. And then it just rattles on a bit here about our financial backing. We have built-in financial advantage over Rangers with the club size, the stadium. Something is always needed to create tilt in that direction, and that has been tax fraud in the past. Many suspect refereeing has been used to a similar effect. I've seen about 35 years of Ibrox clubs spending money that they didn't have. Some people have lost lots of money in these two clubs. How long can it continue? So further to that, now we'll get into, that's just the taking the piss side of it. Now for the proper report, okay? So Sevco posted a £4 million loss in their latest accounts off the back of 2 player sales, director loans, and a Europa League run. They have McGregor, Davis, Hollander, Arfield, Kent, Jack, and Morelos out of contract this summer, with Tillman's loan also ending. They spent $15 million on transfers this season and maxed themselves out to rebuild Edmiston House, which is costing them a fortune in repayments, $1 million plus. They have 2 pending court cases, Elite Sport and the Sydney Cup organisers. They are reportedly increasing their season ticket fees. And you can bet your mortgage that there will be significant unrest from them if Celtic win another treble and they win absolutely nothing this season. Unless they want to be in breach of financial fair plays rules, there is no chance of them to be forking out another $15 million in transfer fees. Which means picking up some more signings in the SPFL, lower levels of England, or loan deals. which Bill has said he doesn't want to do. If they're going to sign Tillman, it's an extra £5 million, which could be a big chunk of their budget. If they do spend big, then they'll breach financial fair play. If they don't strengthen significantly and replace those leaving, they'll be watching Celtic lift the 54th title next season. Celtic are in a position of strength without needing to break the bank. All eyes will be on them this summer. If they don't get their transfer business right, they will watch Celtic canter to the next 2 or 3 titles with ease. No matter who we sell this summer, we will strengthen properly at Celtic and without the need to fudge the books either. So, looking at it this way, they is fucked. Get the ice cream and jelly ready, everyone.
That's it. It's some big issues on the other side of Glasgow for sure. It's it's just one of those things. They're going to contract. I think they're probably going to plunge themselves further into debt. Is what's going to happen. I can't see them doing anything else. They'll keep a lot of them. I think you're right saying there'll be lots of loans. There'll be lots of SPFL signings and lower league England signings and stuff. But I think Bill's comments. I think he's slightly delusional about him not wanting to. I think that's his options. He's got nothing else. He either keeps the players he's got on a premium, or he goes and tries to find cheaper equivalents. So yeah, I think we shouldn't get so ahead of ourselves to think that this is the death of them, or that it's going to still be easy. I think they'll still fight. So yeah, but I think it's bad for Scottish football in the sense that we're seeing another small team go under. It's not nice to see, I guess.
For me, John, it's not that I'm putting the cart before the horse and saying that they're going to die. What I'm saying is, okay, they've spent money they haven't had, and it's finally catching up to them to the point that they need to rein it back in, and they're not going to be able to replace like for like with those going out with what they need to come in. So it's either going to bring them back towards the rest of the league, or they're going to have to overstretch it again.
Yeah. They'll overstretch.
So if they overstretch, which is them being true to form, then we watch that ticking time bomb get closer to going off. If they actually rein it in, which is what they should have done when they came up through the leagues, they had a perfect opportunity. They were bringing through some players from their academy. They had it bringing in a few name players. They could have just built long term. They weren't going to win straight away anyway, but they came in and they brought in Joey Barton. They bring in a bunch of other guys, and they reverted straight back to type. This is a chance they can hit the reset button and do it properly to be sustainable the way we are, or they can stay to type, spend money they don't have, and go to the wall again. It's pretty simple.
Yep. It's pretty interesting stuff, I must admit. Look, most people know I don't normally comment on the financial stuff, so I'll keep this brief. But looking at the figures that were reeled off, it's clearly not sustainable. You can't keep running at a loss like that. What surprised me the most was even after that glorious Europa League run that they still went at a loss. That caught me a little bit by surprise, to be honest. When I saw that, I thought, wow, that's no good. And obviously they'll get Champions League money in for this season. But well, there you go. So they're running at a loss, right? So your lack of band theory is spot on, right? Or you're stretching it theory, lack of band, right? Eventually that lack of band either breaks or it snaps back. You just can't stretch it forever. So it's just not sustainable.
Yep, 100%. Good. That's what we want. Want them to live within their means. Like, they were the ones blocking financial fair play being implemented in Scotland for years ago. So if this is going to force them to have to do it, then hopefully that's the way it is. But I doubt it.
I think their issue is similar to ours, right? And I'll say why, right? I mean, most big teams, I don't mean like the mega giant elites, right? Like your Barcelonas and Real Madrid and stuff. They all operate at a loss. They always have, right? But they're in a league where that doesn't really mean anything. Like, they're always going to be able to pay their debts off because they're always consistently going to get more money in to pay. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like doing your own books, right? Like, as long as you can pay your debts off, then you're in an okay position. But it's the Scottish League, so they're just not going to have that position where they're going to guarantee to always be able to pay the debt. If they're going to go further and further into debt, then it's going to be harder and harder to pay off the repayments. They can't guarantee the Champions League money. They can't even guarantee the Europa League money, right? There's it's not going to give them enough. So that's their issue, is that the further they plunge into debt. So it's why, Celtic, and as infuriating as it is, operate the entire opposite model. We all talk about like the biscuit tin shit and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, at least we're smart enough to realize we can't rely on all this massive mega money, so we have to have a little bit in the bank just in case. That's just smart bookkeeping, isn't it?
It makes sense, because that's how Rangers went under. They were stretching, banking on qualifying for the Champions League to get that money in to pay off the director loans and the board and whoever else they owed money to, and then they missed the Champions League, and then that was all over. I was a ticking time bomb after that. And where I said this year's Champions League money's gone already is they'll pay it off director loans. They put it all into that Edmondson house. They paid off Mike Ashley. They did a bunch of stuff like that. So, it is what it is. But we'll bring up some comments here. So, Angelo Tyro, if they re-sign Kent for 20 mil, they'll go under. Patrick McLaughlin, they'll be relying on loan signings and free transfers.
There'll be a couple of them for sure.
I said last June, the goalkeeper situation at that club tells you everything you need to know. They've had 4 windows to replace a pensioner in goals. There you go.
Do you know, honestly, the people I was watching the game with looked at McGregor and went, Jesus, he's old. What's he doing? What's he doing on the pitch? And I was trying to
his dad's in goals.
Yeah, I was trying to guess his age. And I said 42, and they went 42. He's playing soccer at 40. I'm like, yeah, he is. That's right.
Yeah. Brilliant. Anyway, we'll leave that one there, and we'll crack into the next topic, because we don't want to go too far down this feral rabbit hole. So, Kevin Clancy has received death threats on the back of his performance in the Glasgow Derby. So, I can read quotes out, but everyone's probably seen them in all the papers, so there's not much point. The SFA or the SPFL, which one of them, SFA, has referred it to a significant volume of threatening and abusive emails to Police Scotland in the wake of Saturday's derby. So, to me, I look at it and go, the guy comes to work, does his job. One call doesn't go your way, you throw the toys out of the pram, and you act like a bunch of spoilt brats. That's pretty much what's going on here. And we've got to address, and the further topic off the back of that is why we've named the podcast this. But I want to get Shane and John, I want to get your opinion on what's happened so far. So, Shane?
Yeah, so I think if I can take a moment just to talk about the death threat situation and what's come out. And I've read supposedly that Kevin's address, his place of work and so forth, has also been mentioned as online. I think this is horrible behavior. I think anyone involved in that is just horrendously such a low thing to do. I can't fathom that kind of behavior to target an individual because a 50-50 decision didn't go your way. It's reprehensible. You have to condemn it in the strongest possible terms. And I actually thought the statement that their club put out was terrible in a sense that it condemned the abuse of Kevin Clancy. And then in the very next paragraph, basically said they couldn't believe that the SFA had stuck behind his decision. It was beyond a joke. It's actually beggars belief, really, that they'd even try and stoke the fire like that. I think it's really disappointing. I think Michael Stewart actually summed up exactly how I read the situation, and he talks a lot of sense most times when hearts aren't involved. But he basically said the sense of entitlement coming from that club is beyond belief, and it really is. The amount of decisions that have gone their way over the course of time, a number of calls that are probably less than 50-50 that they've benefited from. And they've had one call which easily could have been 6 of one, half dozen as the other, as the old phrase goes. And as you said, it's all toys out of the cot. It's terrible, and no one should be subject to that kind of abuse and threatening behaviour.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up the Michael Stewart tweet that he put out anyway, but you've just beat me to it there, Shane. So Michael Stewart tweeted, Rangers' level of entitlement is incredible. Writing letters wanting explanations and apologies for one perceived mistake. I must have missed the numerous other clubs' letters this season. St Johnstone must surely have done it after their game at Ibrox.
Well, you know what? When I read that they were going to write a letter to it, you know, I'm not a meme guy. I don't make them, but you know, the first thing I thought up was like, put your hands up if you think they should go through with this letter. And then I was going to cross to a picture of Connor Goldson putting his hands up to block the ball.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a lot funnier than what it was. So I'm gonna take a sabbatical now. I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to lick my wounds.
Yeah, it was funny, Shane. It was funny.
I was picturing the meme, Shane. I was picturing the meme.
Yeah.
Connor Goldson like this with a letter between his fingers instead of the football. There you go. I was actually picturing that. See, it was funny. It just wasn't here. Funny.
Yeah.
It was, yours was funnier.
No. Johnny, your take, mate.
It's just not good to see. I think we're all mature enough to realize that Clancy had a pretty poor game. But as you pointed out, Jared, that the guy just turned up and did his job, and this actually is his other job. This is his part-time job. This isn't even his full-time. He does this because he loves football, right? And as much as I don't particularly like the guy, I don't like his refereeing, and I thought he had a shit game. I can move that aside and say that a line has been crossed. And I think it's funny when really serious stuff happens in football, and we all sort of go, "It's just football." And it tends to be a death, right? It tends to be somebody's passed away or there's been a major disaster. And it doesn't matter what rival you have. We all go, nah, it's football. We'll all come together. We can't have this happening again. And I just don't understand why death threats aren't in that category. Does it take somebody dying to actually realize that it's football at the end of the day and all that sort of everything else that goes along with it? Because I understand Celtic Rangers is complicated. I lived in it, but there's moments where we'll go like, you know, right, let's just ship it all to the side for a second. So I don't think death threats of anybody is acceptable, and I think it should be taken in the most serious way. I also think, as we've pointed out, there is levels of accountability that need to be laid down at people's feet, and I do think the organisers at Rangers need to be, like we've said, they've stoked the fire, and I think they need to be. They need to hold their own supporters accountable, and they need to realize their own responsibility and everything. Whether he ever, I think he'll probably come back to refereeing, but this goes into a big conversation of what we've been saying before. So what I've been saying before about like, actually, we can't even get refs at the lowest level of Scottish football to get involved, because why on earth would you get involved in, Lowland League or Highland League football when you've got dads and granddads screaming at you, also, maybe not to the level of death threats, but pretty close, because you're making decisions and it's just your weekend passion and you're getting paid like 50 quid or 100 quid to do it. It's like, Jesus. And then that goes all the way up to the professional level, and it's like, well, what's the point? His family and stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's a severe line that's been crossed, and I hope all that have been involved get what's their comeuppance, to be honest. I hope they get punished severely.
Yep, absolutely. I hope if someone's done something wrong, they cop the repercussions for it. So, I've got the next thing that spins off the back of this as well is the reporting of the threats to Kevin Clancy in the Scottish mainstream media. It's a reason why I've named the podcast incorrectly using the old firm. I'm going to bring up a few pictures here, and it ties into this comment here from Patrick. Ali McCoy's caused all this with his over-the-top reaction. So you've got people like him in the media that don't know what they're talking about, and then you get things like this. Apologies that it's the Sun who was sent to us. Old firm ref's death threats hell. Old firm ref. And then the only mention of any club's name is in the writing over on the screen here. It mentions that Celtic won 3-2 win for Celtic. So it only mentions us by name. It says Jers, their chief condemns Yobs, Old Firm. So it's putting us in with that mob.
Make that make sense.
You got the Daily Ranger, hundreds of potential hate crimes, police probe Old Firm ref abuse. Yet again, no club mentioned in any of it. Old Firm. And then when you read the thing over here for the score, it mentions Celtics win. Again, we're the only club named there. It's not us. Then you got this one here, the Scotsman. Up the top corner there in pink. Police called in over abuse of Old Firm referee. Yet again, Old Firm putting both teams together. And then there's this tweet that sums it up perfectly from Tam. BBC reporting attacks on a referee by Rangers fans. Do so by not mentioning Rangers or their fans and using a picture of the Celtic captain being booked. And then sure enough, there's the article to the BBC, the link there. Kevin Clancy, referee and family threatened after Old Firm match. First things first, as we always say, it's Glasgow Derby, it's not Old Firm. But secondly, the second thing is they're just trying to dump us into the shit along with that filthy sewer rats from over at Ibrox. It's just and then Strange Love here is that's why the press use the term. It's to protect Sevco, and that's why we call them Old Firm FC. So that says it all there.
Totally agree. That's what it is. It's this is just a narrative. There's already a pre-written narrative, and it, you know what I mean. It's the media are still trying to. They when we had it when it was really bad before I was born, right? So like the 80s and stuff when it was, actually was the Old Firm and all of the stabbings and fighting and stuff and the proper hard shit, right? That was a beast that the media enjoyed because it always gave them something to talk about. So they're so desperate to have that narrative held on to now that they'll do anything they possibly can to try and connect it back to this old thing that doesn't really exist anymore. So it would have been anything if it could have been the tiniest little incident possible, even though this is not a tiny little incident, but it could have been a tiny little incident and it would have been Old Firm this and Old Firm that. It doesn't really matter. They just want to talk about how vicious and how how much of a spectacle it is and how much they hate each other and all this sort of stuff. So it's not really about Celtic and it's not really about Rangers. It's about, I'm going to say, English owners of media desperately trying to hold on to a narrative that just doesn't exist anymore because it's not there anymore. We don't have the Old Firm. It's just not. It's not a thing. I mean, this is serious, but it is very much labelled on one side of the sea, and it's got. I mean, I personally don't believe for a second it's got anything to do with us. Why? Anyone who's a Celtic fan would give death threats to Clancy after we won. Most of them will be celebrating, right? We'll be partying and stuff. There's no chance we'd waste our time doing stuff like that. So it's very much on the other side. But because on the other side, they just want to draw it back into this big old
After
beast.
the game, we won, Johnny, and I was just like, Clancy is absolutely hopeless. But we won, so whatever. And get on with it. Don't expect anything better. But then going through some of the things here, like where is it? Michael Ross, there are still stabbings. Mahesh, lawyers would have advised to use that form of language to prevent being sued. Now, the thing we see whenever we go to Glasgow Derby, it's not the Old Firm. You see the response straight away from Sevco fans online. Oh, but who owns the trademark? Who just renewed the trademark on the Old Firm term? What, Celtic and Rangers both own a 50-50 share of that trademark. I wonder why, because we get money from TV for it. There's contractual reasons, so people can't use it for free. But we as a club, we call it the Glasgow Derby. So it's completely different to the Old Firm and what it used to be back in the good old days.
Implicating Celtic is purely just because most of the British media see us as the baddies. That's what it is. There's somebody said it. It's protecting Rangers. It's just we're the baddies, so we can't tarnish the good boys.
Yeah, it's shout out to Liam. It's a pity he's not on tonight's episode because I think he would have absolutely loved this topic and gone to town on it. To be honest, reading and seeing those headlines. I'll try my best.
Yes.
Look, seeing the headlines that were posted, I saw them today, and obviously you put them up on the podcast, was just extremely disappointing, because it gets back to this whole kind of a discussion that Liam's mentioned before, and we've had previously as well, about things kind of being put out there, but not really challenged or substantiated. And so everything's mentioning Old Firm. Now, you can look at it a couple of ways. You can say that it's an easy way for people to sell newspapers. Maybe it appeals to more people and so forth. Or you can look at it a more negative way and say, no, they're trying to implicate us in this event, which is completely wrong. Either way, it just seems like it's been able to skip through again without anyone kind of going, hang on a sec, what's actually behind this? Where is this coming from? What does this actually relate to? Are both clubs involved? Is it one club in particular? But it's just easier to implicate both. It's extremely disappointing. And I find it frustrating. That, and I think, Jared, you actually pointed to a really important point throughout all of that, we're the only club mentioned by name. It's only mentioning the score, but we're the only one mentioned by name in the references to what's happened. And it's just terrible. It's hard to actually find the words for it, really. It's frustrating to be privy to it. And it feels like, it's hard to fathom that they'd go down that path, really, but it's not surprising.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a comment here from Michael Ross. When we win the semi-final, our players will need full body armour for the last Glasgow derby of the season. Do you just give them a 3-0 and just don't show up, and they get no ticket money either?
You could
just being clever. I'll just play the B team.
Oh, yeah, just sacrifice the bees.
Jeez.
B for body armor. Off you go.
No, you figure it out. You pick a few players though who have got crazy contracts that you want to get rid of, right? Or recall a few people from loan. So we could play Barkas. We could bring in guys like Liam Scales can come back, and you can bring back, just being an absolute dickhead here. Let's be honest, but bring in some guys here, throw a few blokes in there, and just chuck James McCarthy out there because, he doesn't play. So let him go out there. And if he cops a few studs down the shin, no big deal. And off you go. And I just wouldn't play. I'd just be like, all right, take your 3-0. We're still going to win the league by 9 points or whatever instead of 12.
It's not a bad idea. I don't know if Andy will ever.
It's sad it has to get to that, though. I guess that's the underlining thing for me. Is it sad it has to get to that we'd literally go, you know what? We can't risk the safety. We can't have our players, our officials, potentially in an unsafe environment. So we're going to have to forfeit. Like, to get to that level is, and it may have to happen, but to get to that level is just shocking.
It'd be the only way that you'd get the SFA and the SPFL to do anything about it, because if you suddenly do that, what's the biggest game that they sell TV rights on in the whole Scottish TV package? That derby. So if you pull the pin on it and be like, yeah, we're not playing because their fans are feral, they're going to throw bottles at us, coins, they put glass on the pitch, our physio got staples to his head last time he was there. All these things have happened. And then we just be like, we're just not going to be safe there, especially with what's going on at the moment and death threats to referees. It's like, we don't want to put ourselves out. Something needs to be done better for the league. Only way you'll get it is to do that, is to, make a big song and dance and actually do something like that.
I doubt something like that will happen, but it's probably the most sensible thing. It's just to bin the game. But we'll see. Hopefully stuff settles a little bit. That's maybe.
I had a comment from Angelo about this topic because we knew Liam would have loved it. So Liam goes down the sequel. That could be the podcast name when the time comes. Now, here's another topic Liam would have loved. Robbie Nielsen sacked by Hearts. So for me,
not shocked.
I don't like seeing managers lose their job, right? But couldn't have happened to a bigger dickhead. Like, this guy looks like he's run out of ways to say it's not his fault that they lost again. And overall, he was the 17th manager fired by an SPFL club this season. So, want to get your thoughts. Johnny, we'll go to you first. Is there a higher fire policy in Scotland similar to what's going on down south now? Or is it just it looks that way because the same managers get recycled between all the different clubs in Scotland?
I saw this. I think that's a very good point. I think it is a little bit of the second one. I think it is just the same sort of managers getting recycled around. Which, I mean, maybe that's a topic for another day, but that's a big question about why we can't, let's say outside of the Glasgow teams, Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen are pretty big sides, right? Historic sides. You should be able to get more of a up-and-coming manager to that wants a crack at that sort of stuff. So I'm a bit surprised that they're not trying. Maybe it's money stuff, probably is. But I reckon that's a good point about recycling. Probably it's a lot of that. I think the days where you get like
on that, John, is Jim Goodwin. St Mirren to Aberdeen to Dundee United in the space of 18 months.
Yeah, anyway, exactly.
Sorry, back to what you were saying.
Well, no, but that's a very good point. It's just, and I think gone are the days where you get Fergie sticking around for however long it was. What was it, a decade or something? I can't remember what it is. Or you get a manager for a very long extended period of time. Managers tend to last a very short time in today's modern football. So it seems to be something's going on in Scottish football right now where it is just like sort of hire fire as quickly as you can. But if you look at the table sort of below, I can't remember. I think it's below Aberdeen, Hearts, where it's like 50, 50, 51, and then it's like everyone's like really competitive below Celtic Rangers. So yeah, it's like it's so high pressure at the rest of the table that I can see that they're all fighting for the European spots. So and that has implications further down everywhere else as well. And probably the relegation as well. I can't remember what the relegation is going on like that. I think that's also super tight as well. So I think there's a bit of that. But I just think loyalty to managers have gone. And I think it's a nonsense. I think you should give managers at least a season and a half to try and do something. And it's just that's just the world we've got just now.
So the easiest way to look at the ladder at the moment is as us with a 12-point gap to Rangers, who then have I think it's a 19-point gap if my maths is right, to Aberdeen in third. Hearts are 2 ahead of fourth, but then from third through to sixth. We'll go one better. Third through to eighth, there's 11 points, the difference. And from 12th up to 8th is also 11 points. So the team in dead last is the same amount of points behind the team in 8th that the team in 8th is behind the team in third.
Yeah. That's mental, isn't it?
It's pretty competitive.
I think it had to happen though for Robbie to go because they were a very safe third. They were never going to challenge the top 2, but they were a safe third. And the likes of Aberdeen and Hibernian had their ups and downs and really weren't in a position to challenge them, provided they kept kind of at their usual pace. They've ended up losing 6 of the last 7 in all competitions, including losing like 5 in a row or something like that, and relatively heavy defeats in a couple of them, but also, losing to teams you probably wouldn't have expected them to. So I think that, and the fact that they've now dropped to 4th, and, they've got an Edinburgh derby coming up against Hibs. So they drop that. St Mirren could jump above them into 4th. They could find themselves 5th sooner rather than later. I think they had to move. Now, in terms of the higher fire stuff, I think there does seem to be a little bit of that kind of recycling stuff. I mean, I'm thinking of people like Stephen Robinson and Derek McInnes and so forth. Not wanting to make this all about Ange, but just, well, maybe I should have Celtic podcast. But, obviously Celtic went out on a limb a little bit, got Ange, different environment, different different part of the footballing world, it might, open up others to make those kind of decisions instead of going for similar managers already around the league. They might say, let's try this league over here. Let's look at some Australian managers who are doing well. Maybe this might be a little bit of an opening that other clubs that are lower down can take advantage of.
Yep,
Agreed.
sounds 100% agree. So it'll be interesting to see when the Kevin Muscat rumours to, take over for Beale or whatever startup.
I don't want to drag on about it, but did who was it who signed? There was like a Juventus assistant manager or something that was in the Scottish system. For a while.
Yeah, I know. He took over at Alessio or Alessi or something like that. He took over at Killy.
Yeah, Kilmarnock. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Steve Clark moved on.
Yep. Just when Steve moved on to manage Scotland, he took over, and it didn't really work out, unfortunately. It's not always foolproof. Like, you have a lot of people come in who might want to play some pretty expansive football, and they simply don't have the players to be able to achieve what they're after. So there needs to be a level of pragmatism as well. But, still, it pays sometimes to look outside the box.
I agree.
All right,
for every Pedro Caixinha, there's an Ange Postecoglou, right?
So... Well said.
Nice. There we go. All right. So I'm going to quickly just rattle off something, Shane, that you brought to my attention, is that I've mentioned in particular that Celtic should look at signing left back Geordie Boss from Melbourne City, who has just made his international debut for Australia. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen now, because it looks like Man City are signing him from their, sister club, Melbourne City. And then it could potentially be, if we were to get him, the Arzani type of move where Man City get him and loan him up to us if we wanted him. But it looks like he's the next one to do that path from Melbourne City over to Man City, and then they'll just sell him on and make a nice little cheeky profit for financial fair play reasons in a season or two. So... I would have liked him to come to us, but, doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I wouldn't be so sure. I think the Arzani situation has a lot of legs here, though. He's an exciting prospect. They'll bring him in. He's obviously not going to shake the first team at Manchester City straight away. They're going to want him to get some game time. The way he plays and his qualities, I think, would suit Celtic, and I think he'd benefit from playing in our system and learning under Ange Postecoglou. So I could definitely see him getting a loan type deal out to Celtic, and whether that turned into an option to buy later or something like that, I'm not sure. But just because he goes to City, I wouldn't rule out necessarily seeing him in a Celtic shirt next season.
I hope you're right more than I am. But anyway, we'll leave that one there. So, all right, on Sunday at Rugby Park, Celtic versus Killy. Shane, what's your expected starting lineup?
Yeah, so I was just reading before we came on air. It looks like Ange said that there won't be any sort of injured players coming back on the weekend, being pretty conservative with taking players who are returning onto that plastic pitch, so you can rule out Hatate in midfield. So with that in mind, for me, a back four, Hart in goal, and in a back four of Johnston. I think CCV, according to some of ours in the group, might have picked up a fifth booking and therefore is out. So he's out. So you'll probably see Starfelt on his preferred side. So Starfelt and Kobayashi. Welcome to Scottish football, Kobayashi. Here's a plastic pitch. And Greg Taylor on the left. Midfield, I don't know if Moy retains his spot or not. I can see Calmac and O'Reilly staying. Maybe Awata and Calmac pushes a little bit forward and Moy on the bench. Up front, I think Maeda, Kyogo, and Jota.
Johnny, any changes for you?
Well, I think very similar. I think Awata might get a start. I thought it was surprising that Barnaby came on the Glasgow Derby. So, yeah, we might see him give Taylor a rest, and then maybe Taylor comes on later on or something. But I don't think it'll be too different. I didn't know about CCV, so I think that's a guaranteed that Kobayashi starts. But I don't think Ange will mess about with it too much. So fairly similar. I think the only one for me is that I think plastic pitch, Moy's not 100% fit, sort of stuff. You might just breast him and kill his game. Put Owata on instead.
Everyone's going Owata in the midfield instead of Moy. For me, I was actually going the other way. I was like, I was actually wanting to put Turnbull in instead.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Same sort of player as Moy. Controlling games, slow build up, direct passing. So yeah,
100%. All right. So score predictions. First scorer and score predictions. So Shane.
I'm going 3-0, and I'll go Jota.
that
Johnny?
was like exactly what I was going to say. Also, I'll be different then. I'll say 3-1 and Maeda.
Cool. I'll go 7-2.
Be different. Come on.
Okay. We'll go 5-1. And yeah, Maeda, first goal scorer.
As if we're going to concede twice. Come on.
Yeah.
That's why I scaled it back to 5-1.
Got to be realistic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good fun.
We still haven't had the double digits yet, Jared.
Yeah, I know. Oh well.
Yeah, we still need a double digit prediction.
We've still got 2 more Glasgow derbies to come, Johnny. Come on.
That's true.
We'll do it at Hampton. Get in some style. Yeah, perfect. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for the pod. We appreciate each and every one of you in the comments, and everyone who subscribed to the channel. If you haven't done so, you're on YouTube. Hit the like button for the video. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, so you get notified when all 3 of our shows go live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, thank you. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so. And join our Facebook group. We've got our Twitter and Instagram at Celtic Down. You can find us there. Other than that, we'll go to a final thought. So, Shane, we'll go to you.
Still football related for me. Big shout out to the Matildas, who in the early hours of the morning here went over and beat the Lionesses 2-0 at Brentford Stadium in the perfect way to make up for the 1-0 loss to Scotland on the weekend, and perfect prep for the Women's World Cup, which is in Australia in July. So go on the Matildas. And no, Sean, I'm not using their actual sponsorship name. They're the Matildas.
What's their sponsorship name? Oh, you're going to say
it. They're technically the Combank Matildas, just like they're the Subway Socceroos.
Oh, gross. Yeah, nah, I'm loving that. Yeah.
Kick on. Johnny, final thoughts.
Music as always. I listened to a band I haven't listened to in years called Floors and Walls. They're actually from my hometown in Margate in Kent. They were very, very popular and sort of semi-famous, I guess, like sort of local celeb sort of thing, because obviously they're from your hometown. So I used to play all the time. I used to watch them a lot. I've recently found out they're not playing anymore, which is sad. But yeah, they're really, really good. I really like them. If you like sort of, they called it chavcore, which I hate, but it's like hardcore alternative music. But because they've got an English accent from the southeast, it's chavcore. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, if you like just sort of slightly upbeat hardcore music, give them a go. They're Floors and Walls. They're brilliant. I like them.
I had a final thought, but I'm not going to say what I wanted to because, yeah, I've just realised I will probably get the channel taken down. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate it. And, hope everyone had a great Easter. There you go. That's my final thought.
Good.
Hail, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hail.